up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined by my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Tablesetters here. We're happy to have you. Much needed episode tonight. We've wanted to have something like this. Really, I think it's very timely to talk about some of the Japanese players that may be making their way over to Major League Baseball very soon.
And today we're joined by someone essential in helping English-speaking fans truly understand Japanese baseball. Jim Allen is one of the leading voices covering NPB, a writer, analyst, and historian whose work at jballallen.com and his weekly newsletter has bridged the gap between Japan and Major League Baseball for decades, from posting system player development to the cultural forces that shape NPB's storytelling. Jim brings context and insight you simply can't get anywhere else. Jim, welcome to the show. We're delighted to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me on.
So, Jim, like Steve said, we're excited to have you here and pick your brain a little bit. We're going to get into the individuals throughout this discussion, but I want to start by talking about the posting system in general.
Sure.
I think American fans often view the posting system as kind of a simple transaction. When we're looking at it, player asks to be posted, major league teams negotiate, a deal gets done. That's the part of it we see. But the system grew out of decades of tension, stars leaving through loopholes, NPB clubs losing elite players without compensation, and a structure that drew heavy criticism from agents, unions, and even ownership in NPB. From your vantage point, what aspects of the posting process remain misunderstood, whether it's the negotiations unfolding, the teams deciding when to post a player, or maybe how the incentives on both sides shape the dynamics? Looking at the long arc of criticism leading up to the 2013 reforms, do you think those changes solve the core issues, or did they simply shift where the leverage might sit?
I think it's the latter. It's gradually gone to where the Japanese teams have virtually no control over the process except yes or no. Once they go to it, they're left up to the whims of whatever contract the player signs with the team. And now to give you an example, there's great questions because the 2013 was the start of taking the control away from the Japanese teams. They used to be able to set a posting fee, and whatever they used to be able to set a minimum, and then every team got to bid on it. So there was a silent auction, but that meant MLB teams were leaving money on the table, and they're not going to do that for very long. And that was the record was Daisuke Matsuzaka and Yu Darvish each got in the area of $51 million in posting fees, and another $50 million on top of that for the player. So that was they were getting half, essentially. They were getting actually 100% of the posting fee of the contract fee. So that didn't sit well with MLB, and Japan is it's really funny. Japan is still in a business model that believes players are not going to, that is based on the idea that players will never move to another league. So they really haven't coped with this very well. They also have a very traditionally weak position in relation to MLB. They typically are subservient. And one executive said, basically, whatever NPB goes to New York to negotiate a new deal, it's always, well, what do you guys want? And okay, it's going to hurt, but we'll just accept it. I'm paraphrasing. It was much more colorful than that. But that's been the case. And the dynamic has shifted. 2013 is very critical because Masahiro Tanaka was expected to get a posting fee in the area of $100 million. And suddenly MLB pulls out of the deal in September and says, okay, we'll go 20 million. That's as far as we want to go. But they did allow, the difference was good for the players in that it allowed the players to negotiate with every team they wanted to. Before, the players had no leverage. So that was bad. That was the one good thing to come out of 2013. Of course, the problem was the posting fee was capped at $20 million. The Japanese teams were still allowed to collect, to set a minimum. They were allowed to set a minimum, and they were allowed to reject any posting fee that was too low for them. The Shohei Ohtani modification, which was quite interesting, basically gave the teams a percentage of the contracts, a very sort of a sliding scale percentage of the contracts. It's a fairly complicated formula, but the MLB teams quickly learned how to circumvent that. So, and the Seattle Mariners started this when they signed Yusei Kikuchi to a contract. They had a 3-year opt-out. So his contract, his original, for whatever, I don't remember the original amount of his contract, but for example, let's say it was $70 million. It was $70 million with $30 million up front and a 3-year buyout. Well, that meant the only part that his team, the Cebu Lions, got was the $30 million. They got, their calculation was based on the 30 million figure and not the 70 million figure. If the Mariners if he had remained with the Mariners, that would have represented a $40 million interest-free loan for 3 years.
Wow.
So the new system is really broken in that respect, in that the NPB teams are basically letting themselves go because they can't get together on it to do a better package. They're way less unified than MLB teams are. The reason for that is fairly deep and complicated, but the idea is that NPB is not set up to be an internationally marketed brand. It's set up to be a brand where one team makes all the rules and keeps the other teams weak.
Yeah, so we will talk more about the players that will be posted, and you can check out jballallen.com for all Jim's takes. And in your October 28th article, you talked about the contrast between MLB's extra inning structure and obviously what happens in MPB, the 12-inning limit, the ties, and practical reason behind those boundaries. So watching the moment unfold, when we watched even Yoshinobu Yamamoto warming up in the World Series just 2 days after a 105-pitch complete game, what stood out most to you about the philosophical gap between both leagues? And where do you think American audiences most often misunderstood Japan's approach to extra innings, whether it's the pacing, the workload, or maybe the idea that a game doesn't always need to produce a winner at all costs?
Well, I think that's the last part. I mean, that's the great thing. Well, I mean, there are reasons for the structural differences. People aren't attending NPB games by car. They depend on public transportation that shuts down a little after midnight. So that's probably the primary. And also another thing is NPB teams don't fly charter. So for them to rearrange their schedule, if they're typically they'll stay overnight in the city where they're playing and catch a flight or a train in the morning, which is not a problem because Japan is one time zone flight. The longest flight's about an hour and a half. So the infrastructure is a thing, and also the team traveling. I know MLB's traveling entourage with a team has grown. Back in the 70s, it was probably 40 or 50 people, and now it might be 75. A Japanese team might be 100. Because of they'll bring the Japanese teams have batting practice pitchers that travel with the team. So the coaches don't throw BP typically,
Oh, wow.
unless they're an American coach usually. So the arrangements and the hotel reservations and the travel reservations are pernicious in NPB, where they're not in America. So the extra inning limit is pretty much a artifact of the infrastructure differences. So it is the way it is. I'll tell you, they had 1 year, 1990. The Central League said there will be no ties will be left to stand. Every tie game will require a makeup game.
Oh, wow.
And for the first time in history, there were no ties in NPB,
Wow.
in an NPB league. That went on for about 4 years, and then they said, well, this is the makeup games are trouble for the same reasons I mentioned earlier. So, so that's probably the most misunderstood thing. Next to the fact that the quality in Japan is really, really good. People, think of it as I think the other misconception is that the Japanese leagues are part of organized baseball, and that MLB teams have a right to basically sign whoever they want and not pay anything to the Japanese teams. You basically have to reorient that and think of Japan and Korea and Taiwan as other major leagues that are not part of organized baseball, where now, mind you, they don't these leagues don't often think of themselves in that way, and that's probably the biggest problem of that algebraic equation. But no, the quality here is very good. The quality of the atmosphere and the intensity of the games is probably superior to MLB. I saw last year what the average attendance was at MLB stadiums, and they were saying this is the highest of the year, and I'm saying this is normal for Japan, when if the teams with the two stadiums that hold more than 33,000 are both in action, it's really easy for Japan to have an average of 35,000 fans at 6 games. The intensity is amazing.
It's interesting. And one of those stars that certainly have a lot of eyeballs on him right now is Tatsuya Imai. Sure. His rise has felt, super impressive. A 1.92 ERA this past season, 170 strikeouts, 4 straight years of improving command, a fastball that touches 99. Here it's getting comparisons to Joe Ryan's fastball, also a splitter reverse slider pairing that fits perfectly into the modern Major League Baseball pitch design. We had Eno Saris on here covering or kind of talking with us about Imai a little bit, called him one of the sneaky free agent bargains in this year's class compared to some of the other guys out there, largely because of how complete his evolution has become. From your perspective, what has impressed you the most about Imai's development? And are you optimistic that his success in MPB can translate well to Major League Baseball?
Yeah, Imai's thing is he's got all the tools, and the one knock on him is that it's funny. He almost enjoys the game too much to where he'll do sort of Satchel Paige kinds of things. I don't mean like having the infielders all sit down or something around the mound, but he'll do things like one inning he famously decided he's going to throw all sliders. He'll go on a cruise control. It's almost like the game is too easy for him. And so that's kind of his thing, but he's got all the tools. He has that steady growth pattern. It looks almost like an Excel spreadsheet, just gone from every category's gone from A to B. Now, on the other hand, if you look at the home runs allowed in Japan, it's misleading because for one reason or another, the NPB, the Japan's ball has gotten deader and deader over the last 4 years, progressively. So the ERA's dropping is a consequence as much of that. And Imai, being Imai, said, yeah, well, that's just the context. You have to take the context into effect. So it's as dead in 2000. Let me just get my dates right. In 2011, they had a 2013, they had they brought in a 2011, they brought in a dead ball. And in 2013, they secretly, some people within the commissioner's office backstabbed the commissioner and changed the ball without telling him.
Wow.
Because the teams wanted a livelier ball, and he wasn't going to play ball, so to pardon the pun, for another year. He planned 3 years of a really dead ball. It was poorly designed. in the sense that the parameters were poorly designed. He basically set them at the minimum allowed standard, which meant half the balls were lower than spec, and it was soft and mushy, and almost nobody could hit home runs with it. Very few home runs to the opposite field. Well, when it was discovered in 2013 that they had changed to a livelier ball without telling anybody, well, you know, the excrement hit the fan, and he lost his job basically in a palace coup, and so it was big news. But this ball is deader. The ball now is far deader than the one that the owners complained about 14 years ago. And why it is something I cannot guess. Now it's said every year, they say, no, it's not intentional. It's not intentional. It's not intentional. But the numbers are not, I don't want to say the numbers don't lie, but the numbers are what they are.
Right.
Japan does have few guys who actually are home run threats on every pitch against every pitcher, but still the home runs are not coming. So my guess is they are. Well, my if it were a conspiracy theory, would be that Japan wants to shorten its games. But they do not want to institute a pitch timer with disengagement rules.
Gotcha.
Because Japan is funky about rules, and they're very hung up on dogma, and they never want to touch the game because every tiny bit of it is considered sacred. I mean, even like pick off through the cat and mouse between pitcher and runner and catcher is so much a part of Japan's one-run thinking that if we limit disengagements, there'll be too many stolen bases, and that element of the game will be lost. And when Japan loses its details, or fears losing its finely crafted art, or any portion of its finely crafted art of whatever it's doing, people tear their hair out. Japan is really, there's an expression in Japan called kodawari, and it's the obsessive, maniacal attention to detail. And the disengagement rule is, I think, of a crass violation of that. And the people in baseball cannot conceive it. So instead of that, instead of a pitch timer with disengagements, I think they've decided just to deaden the ball until nobody hits home runs and the games all end after 2 hours.
I got to ask you this, because this is related to something Imai said recently, but I want to go back a couple years ago. When Yoshinobu Yamamoto was posted, or when he was coming over, there was this narrative here that maybe he won't sign with the Dodgers because there was this legend that a Japanese player might not want to join another team in Major League Baseball that already has a Japanese star. And then obviously Yamamoto and Roki Sasaki went against that narrative. Now Imai is out here saying that he basically wants to compete against the likes of Ohtani and Sasaki and Yamamoto and take them down, which Major League fans, other than Dodgers fans, loved to hear that. But my question to you is, like, was that a real thing that was being talked about here with once upon a time a Japanese player maybe not wanting to join a Major League team that already had a Japanese star?
I think that was once upon a time because especially if they were similar players, you know, if they were pitchers, if there was another star pitcher, you have to understand that back in the day, the Japanese stars, with the exception of Tsuyoshi Shinjo, all the hitters who were going were big time. Ichiro Suzuki and Hideki Matsui. These were guys who, for a few years, were considered the best player in Japan. And the idea that they would want to share that spotlight with another Japanese player was probably the thing. But I think that's probably about it. That now when I went to New York in 2000, I don't remember, it was 2013. Now I remember it was 2013. I was in New York, and 2014 I was in New York, and they had Ichiro Ichiro was there, and Masahiro Tanaka was there, and Hiroki Kuroda was there, and nobody seemed to care. I mean, that's an old thing. There are people who will think like that. There are just like there are Japanese who don't want to go to school in the U.S. because they want to learn English, but they don't want to go to a school that's famous for Japanese people. I mean, and Imai is famously his own guy. Ironically, the other guy who's being posted by the Seibu Lions is Kona Takahashi, who 3 years ago everybody was drooling about, and then he had two of the worst seasons in his career, and now he's the forgotten man. And he was the guy. He was. Yusei Kikuchi took him under his wing when Yusei Kikuchi turned his career around. He got married and he took up weight training and fitness and analytics, and he took Kona Takahashi. Takahashi built himself into a physical specimen, and then Imai was Takahashi's kind of a protege. So, but Imai has been far more consistent. He's got great stuff, and he's got his command is interesting. I suspect his command's going to improve in MLB, but you never know. I mean, one thing, there are hundreds of adjustments Japanese players need to make. Pitchers have to adjust to the fact that the quality control of the balls the NPB balls may be dead, but they're more uniform. Pretty much one ball more or less feels like the next. In MLB, one may feel like a beanbag, and the next one feels like a rock you picked up out of the backyard. So there's that adjustment. The mounds, however, are more uniform in MLB. So there's lots of adjustments they have to do. Imai, I think, is going to handle that really well.
So another name being posted, a big name that everyone's talking about here, is Munetaka Murakami, and his 56 home run is often framed as the Japanese-born home run record, which is a distinction created to separate his total from Vladimir Belenschen's official record of 60, a Dutch player record set during the 2013 season, during the time when you referenced they were using that livelier ball that caused all the drama. So even though Murakami's mark isn't an official category, the label stuck, and he became how his performance is discussed. So as he makes his jump to Major League Baseball, how much of that narrative do you think follows him, and what's the best way for American fans to understand the true significance of this 56 home run season without inheriting the media framing, the mythology, and all the dogma you mentioned around Japan that developed around him as this? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I saw on his Wikipedia page his nickname is kind of adjacent to God. So this is a guy who
that's because because his name works with that.
Gotcha.
The guy whose nickname was godlike was Seiya Suzuki. So the last 2 years before he moved to MLB, he had these streaks where he hit 13 home runs in a 14-day span, and just crushed the league, just destroyed it. And his manager said he was godlike. So, but Murakami is a play on his name, because Kami is what you call a Shinto god. So his name Kami just means the top of the village, but so they made it out like the god of the village or something. So it's just a play on words. Japan's is ground zero for the world's worst puns. But that's just a fault of having a foreign originated writing system from China with a completely different language. So every character's got about a zillion different readings you can play with. So Murakami's home runs, the Japanese the home run record for a Japanese-born player was a media invention. This is another thing about Japan. The media is different. I can tell you firsthand, the media is different here. Was severely punished for writing something that was true in 2019 because the Giants had decided they were going to keep a lid on it, and so I had to be my company. The National Press Agency decided to punish me in some trivial fashion because they had to tell the Giants they punished me.
Wow.
So people in the Giants said, "Hey, great scoop." I says, "Yeah, well, it cost me $3,000 or $4,000." Well, great, thanks for that. So, no, the media is very much clickbait. So any headline you can have that puts the team, the nation's most powerful team, the most influential team, the Yomiuri Giants, in the headline. If it's Osaka, if it's got the Tigers in the headline, it'll be clickbait. And anytime you can put a record in the headline, it's clickbait. And so they'll make up Murakami's record is not an official record, which my buddy Craig Calcaterra kind of misinterpreted. But the media will seize on these non-records and start touting them as records. And I was harshly criticized by some of the older guys who know everything in the morning newsroom checking the stories, why I wasn't playing up the most consecutive wins by a pitcher since opening day record. When a guy won 14 games in a row from the start of the season, when this was in 2020, and it was Tomoyuki Sugano who was with the Orioles. The reason it was a record was because they made it up. The record for wins from the start of the season is 24 by Masahiro Tanaka in 2013. So they made this a record because Tanaka didn't pitch on opening day in 2013. He was coming back. He had been scheduled to pitch the final of the 2013 WBC. They lost. Sugano lost that game 2-1 to the United States. And Tanaka came back and he started like the 4th or 5th game of the season. But because he didn't pitch on opening day, Sugano, the opening day starter, had a record for, they just make this stuff up. And Murakami's record is like that. It's a record for left-hand. It's a record for left-handed hitters born in February.
I got to ask you about, we got to get a Shohei Ohtani question here. And this is related to him more than it is about him, but he recently committed to playing for Team Japan once again in the upcoming WBC. There have been some whispers that the Dodgers would rather he didn't pitch and maybe just hit in the tournament. The WBC has definitely taken on added importance here in the U.S. over the last decade or so. What's the overall attitude among Japanese baseball fans when it comes to the World Baseball Classic?
Oh, man. Yeah, good question. The WBC is everything here because the whole idea of Japan's this is what brings into play Japan's tremendous insecurity and how Japan is viewed overseas, the pride of the quality of Japanese baseball and the effort that goes into it, and the desire, the actual idea that they get to be on a level playing field with players from other countries. And of course, just nationalism. Yeah. And the whole thing comes together, and the WBC is a 3-week party in Japan. Even non-baseball fans really get into it. It's amazing. So when Ohtani, now the last manager for the Japan national team, Hideki Kuriyama, was chosen. I think everybody believed he was selected because he was Ohtani's only pro manager in Japan, and they had a very good relationship. And Ohtani, who rarely is funny, and now in MLB is incredibly uninteresting. I mean, he's really developed a talent to be uninteresting and boring. He cracked one of his rare jokes, and when somebody asked if he had joined the team because Kuriyama was the manager, he says, "I don't mean to be rude, since I'm sitting next to him, but no, I was going to play anyway." And he actually told 2 jokes in that press conference, which was probably a record for him. Before he got a dog and got married. Now I think his sense of humor has developed. I think getting the dog was part of his sense of humor. I don't know.
Shout out to Decoy.
Yeah. So well, Jim, no, it's huge.
So we know we're running thin on time here. I do want to ask you one more question before we get you out of here.
They're great
we could
questions.
talk all day.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Your questions are superb.
Oh, we appreciate it. We didn't want to waste your time. That's for sure. We want to have good questions ready for you. But
honored.
So we've talked a lot about MPB stars that are coming here. My last question is kind of the opposite. I'd actually like your thoughts on two Americans that were involved in MPB here recently. Anthony Kay, former first-round pick in Major League Baseball, 31 years old now, pitched to a 1.74 ERA this year in 155 innings, an NPB best 57.8% ground ball rate. That is going to get some eyeballs here for sure. Rumors that he'll be making his way back stateside. I want your thoughts on his success, and I'll give you the second guy at the same time here. Trevor Bauer, very divisive figure here in the U.S., pitched to an NPB worst 4.51 ERA among qualified pitchers this year. So my question about him would be, what are your impressions of Bauer, and how have the Japanese fans felt about him playing there?
The Japanese, great question. Anthony Kay certainly benefited. He probably benefited more than anyone from the lack of home runs, because ground ball pitchers, this is sort of the revolution of the last 15 years. Ground ball pitchers, when they miss anywhere middle up, those balls can fly. So Anthony Kay probably benefited as much as anybody in NPB from that. But the pitchers who come to Japan typically learn another gear, in either both mentally and physically. Physically, they tend to pick up pitches. They tend to they have a PFP, pitchers fielding practice, is a 5 to 6 day a week thing here. They become really good. You'll notice that the Japanese pitchers in MLB are spectacular fielders. It's because they've been doing PFP for 15 to 20 years on a daily basis. They are really, really good. The guys who come over here are really, really good they get really, really good at it. They are also, most of them were good pitchers in America who were unable by timing or the roster system to overcome obstacles of shifting from AAA to MLB. In Japan, that's not a problem, because in MLB it was, a combination of things, roster spots and options and all those complicated things. In Japan, they were getting guaranteed contracts, and they're pitching with the same ball every day, and they are playing in front of 30,000 screaming fans in May. And they're also, the other thing that they're becoming mentally adjusted to is challenging hitters in the zone with all their pitches. This is something you can't do if you've got one shot to show you prove your stuff in MLB. So they get used to that, because most of the Japanese guys aren't trying to hit every pitch out of the park. So they play in pressure situations. They learn to throw. They learn confidence. They know they can do it. But they still have guys like Murakami, and they have guys like Kazuma Okamoto, who's also coming over, and guys like Yuki Nagita, who was sidetracked by his team and prevented from coming over, who can really mash the ball. So they get more adjustments to make. They have more They learn how to put away batters who are determined not to be put away. They learn to challenge guys in the zone. It's like a step ladder for the people who need Japanese baseball. It's like a step ladder for the guys who just need that extra step MLB doesn't provide. And a lot of those guys have real talent. So I think Anthony Kay is one of them. Trevor Bauer is basically showing his age. I don't want to say he's showing his maturity. I've never met. I don't know him. I know he's very, very smart. But his emotional issues. He's got a chip on his shoulder the size of Manhattan, and in Japan that doesn't really play well. The Japanese fans, the Bay Stars fan, the Yokohama Bay Stars fans embraced him because you embrace the players on your team, and the team kind of very deftly sidestepped his history. They avoided. Here's the thing: that if the team doesn't want the media to write about it, the mainstream media will not write about it, and that goes back to my punishment. So, his past was covered up. The team didn't say, "Well, this is guy's past, and we're going to give him a second chance." They didn't say that. They just ignored it. And Japan is used to being Japanese people are accustomed to not being told the truth about their history. I mean, they don't know history exists in the 20th century. So what should another story there? They the fact that the team told they just want their team. And here's the thing: they just want their teams to win. And if he contributes, I would. Then they don't care. This is not so different from MLB fans. This is identical. The irony is I didn't think they'd take Trevor Bauer back after his year in Mexico because of some of his on-field antics in his first year. When his team botched a play behind him, he basically made it his mission to show up all his teammates by taking a comebacker to the pitcher and running to first base and waving off the first base and showing all his teammates how a real baseball player fields the ball. And this is in Japan, right? So he was that, and he was just ineffective last year. He had he was really good for a couple of games. Most of the games he was just mediocre. Why that is, I do not know. I guess he's just getting old and he's lacking. He hasn't been able to make the adjustments he needed to make that he was able to make a couple of years ago. So, but yeah, the Japanese fans I mean, in America, what's different? I mean, you could have a serial killer and says, well, he only killed 12 people, but he's helping our team win, So the Astros, there's always a place for him on the Astros, right?
There you go. There you go.
If he has Tommy John surgery and the Astros don't want him, don't worry. The SoftBank Hawks will take him.
Well, as we wrap up here, we really appreciate your time. Just want to, on the way out, we talked about some of the names that are being posted this year, but we would be remiss if we didn't ask about the future names. Who should we be paying attention to get the scoop for maybe next offseason and beyond of some names that maybe American fans will get to know in the 2026 offseason? Well,
I guess the next one coming up is the Central League MVP, Teruaki Sato of the Hanshin Tigers. He's really got his act together. He's got all the tools. He's a third baseman with power. He's erratic, but he's got talent. He's got real talent. And if you can succeed with the Hanshin Tigers, where the press media is intense, and you can improve with them, wow, that's saying something. Yeah, they don't. It's a really tough environment. So he's the big guy right now. There's a couple of pitchers. Of course, there's always a couple of pitchers, but it's really hard to tell at this stage. But thank you again for the great questions. My gosh, you guys blew me away.
Of course, we appreciate having you on here, and want to give you the platform here to hype up everything that's going on at jballallen.com and what you have coming up this offseason. What can listeners go to follow your work and subscribe to newsletter? Give yourself a hype platform because you do amazing work over there.
Well, yeah, I will be upgrading. I've my life's been going through a bit of a change this year. 65 years old was mandatory retirement from the press agency, so I will be. Now that I'm off unemployment, I am rebranding jballallen.com. And if anybody does want to see Japan, and I recommend March because it's cherry blossom season and spring training games are easy to get to. Also, the WBC is going on. I give tours around Tokyo. My new gig is as a history and cultural tour guide and the baseball know-it-all. So come on in, and if you go into jballallen.com, you'll get my contact, and you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Blue Sky, and find me on Facebook. So I look forward to seeing some of you people in Japan.
Well, awesome, Jim. We appreciate all the time you gave us. And like we said before, the WBC is a really big deal. If we could have you back on somewhere down that time, it'd be amazing if you're willing.
That would be great. It's going to be a blast. I'm trying to figure a way where I can afford to go to Miami.
All right. Awesome. So we'll be back in 1 second to wrap up the rest of this episode. Once again, want to thank Jim Allen for hopping on with us. Again, follow all his work at jballallen.com and all the insight into Japanese baseball and the cultural norms and the conversation you and I were just thinking about. This could have went on for 2 hours. I was absolutely intrigued by everything you were saying.
Yeah, just a wealth of knowledge of the game of baseball in Japan. And, you know, if we had a little longer with him, we could have gotten into some more of his personal experiences covering the game. I'm sure he has some fascinating stories in that regard, but very grateful for the time he gave us. Some really interesting thoughts that I'm sure some of our listeners that, whether they're in America or Canada or somewhere else, not as familiar with NPB or what goes on there. I mean, I definitely learned a few things. So I'm hoping if you're listening here tonight or today, you learned something as well.
Absolutely. And like we mentioned before, he's willing to come on during the World Baseball Classic. He mentioned what a big deal that is for the Japanese fans. So it'd be interesting to talk about, because we know that Japan and the USA are seemingly on a collision course in the WBC. We shall see how that goes. But we appreciate everybody listening today. Hope you guys had a very nice Thanksgiving. If you want to support our show, at Tablesetters Pod on IG and also on X at Tablesetters Pod, go back in the archives and check out our other episodes. As we mentioned, we've been on sort of this heater, as they say, throughout the offseason. Will Klein, Keith Ratt, Eno Saris. We had Jim Allen to the long list of amazing guests that are willing to give us their time. And it only continues. We'll continue covering all those things. And, we're going to be back, just the two of us, talking all things baseball when the news drops. Things seem to be moving progressively fast through this offseason. And who knows when the big fish will start to come on the reel and pulled into the boat. We'll be here to guide you all the way through.
Yeah, man, we're having a lot of fun. The guests are fantastic, and we're going to keep some guests rolling. The goal is to have, a guest here or there throughout the entire offseason, and we think we're going to be able to do it, whether it's someone that's brand new or someone that we've had on in the past that's willing to come back on with us. But Steve and I will also be here weekly, the two of us, covering anything that happens free agency, trade-wise. We're trying to have some fun with it. If you didn't listen to the episode 120 a couple days ago, there's a super entertaining segment, in my opinion, my humble opinion, our blind rankings. We put a clip of it today up on Instagram and Twitter as well. So you can take a look at that and see if it's something that you might want to watch a little more of. But as we always ask, the biggest thing you can do for us in this holiday season, if you like what you're listening to, is go leave us a 5-star review. If you're so inclined, write us something. You can write some words down about why you like the show on Apple specifically. I believe Spotify only lets you rate with stars, but Apple, you can actually write a sentence or two or a little more if you feel like it. That really, really helps us. So we appreciate you guys listening, and hopefully you continue to tune in.
So we'll be back next week talking all things baseball. And until that time, we will talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.
In a year that has been so improbable, the